Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about our updated top 24 Dynasty wide receiver rankings with tiers. In this episode, we're going to include the rookies. In our previous wide receiver rankings video, we did not, but now that the receivers have went to their rightful landing spots after the draft, we've got to rank them.
Hike!
All right, Joe, so why don't you start us off? Who do you got in tier number 5?
All right, in my tier 5 at number 24, I've got wide receiver George Pickens. At number 23, Jordan Addison. 22, Tank Dell. And at 21, DK Metcalf.
Oh, interesting. So at number 24, I've got Rashee Rice, 23, Tank Dell, 22, Jordan Addison, and 21, Zay Flowers. Interesting, Joe. I'm a little surprised that you have George Pickens higher than me. Something's got to be wrong there because I've been pounding the table for Pickens for the longest time. And you've always been telling me Deontay's a better guy. Deontay's no longer there. What put you in this top 24? You feel like Pickens is going to pair up well with Russell Wilson?
Yeah, as I've talked about in other videos, I really feel like Russell Wilson's a great quarterback to have for his skill set. You know, he's a guy that likes to stretch it downfield. We saw a guy like Cortland Sutton benefit that greatly in Denver. And you could say George Pickens, I mean, he's younger and probably more athletic than Cortland Sutton at this point. So I think he could be in for a decent year. But I was looking at his age. Like, I didn't even realize he's still 23 years of age. Like, Rashee Rice is even 24. So being that he was younger too, I felt like even though I haven't been the biggest George Pickens guy, a lot of it was the offense, and Deontay Johnson's not there. And he's going to, I mean, somebody's got to step up, and I think it's going to be him. And I think Russell Wilson's a perfect fit for him.
Does Arthur Smith being the offensive coordinator concern you at all? I mean, I was more concerned than you were. I mean, even last year, but there's no doubt he had antics.
He definitely had antics, but you got to understand, Atlanta also had no quarterback. So Russell Wilson's an upgrade than anything Arthur Smith was dealing with last year. And I honestly think the run-first offense that Arthur Smith has, you know, I think he's going to be a good fit for also Russell Wilson, who just couldn't, you know, handle things in Denver with Sean Payton and everything else. But I think Arthur Smith is a good guy, and I feel like, you know, coming off of that play action, this offense is probably going to be similar to what he was more comfortable with in Seattle. And I think, I mean, you saw, you know, DK Metcalf, or even, you know, a while ago, the Doug Baldwins of the world. We've seen Russell Wilson support wide receivers, and so I don't see why Pickens can't be the benefactor this year.
Now, I'm assuming that you don't have Rashee Rice in the top 24. He was probably on the bubble here.
Yeah, I don't have Rice or Flowers in my top 24.
Wow, that's interesting because you had Flowers before. What made you change that?
Yeah, I did have him before. I mean, obviously,
And I didn't have him before, so I brought him in and you brought him out.
Yeah, just honestly, you know, the rookies kind of pushed him, but then just thinking about it, just like we know the Baltimore Ravens, their passing volume is just not going to be that high. He's going to have to do a lot after the catch, I feel like, in trying to create his own plays. And despite him being only the main target there in Baltimore, I don't know. That's just a little concerning. His supporting cast is concerning to what's going to take coverage away from him. And, you know, Mark Andrews, if he stays healthy, you know, he's going to eat into that target share that he potentially had last year. So I have some extra concerns with Flowers, and ultimately he does put other guys above him.
I mean, you sound like me in our previous episode. I actually went the opposite direction with you. You saw Baltimore. I really feel they didn't address the position. I mean, sure, they brought in Demontez Walker, but I'm not concerned about that. I mean, we'll see if he even, you know, ends up being that impactful player. When it comes to Bateman, I need to see it to believe it. I know people are starting to hype him up, saying that he's going to take this next jump. We haven't seen it this whole time. Him getting that contract extension at Baltimore honestly made no sense to me, but that's a different topic for a different day. When it comes to Flowers, they didn't address the position. So I think he's kind of the guy that can really grow and mold in with Lamar. And the thing is, like you said, he can do more with less because of the yards after the catch. So I felt like because of that, he's like kind of the guy in Baltimore. Now they could rely heavily on Derrick Henry, but I just felt Flowers is worthy of being in the top 24.
Yeah, see, that's kind of my concern. I do think, I mean, Flowers is going to be obviously the guy. It's like you, I don't believe, Rashad Bateman, I'll believe it when I see it as well. And when he can actually stay healthy and be a benefactor on the football field. But I think losing Odell Beckham is going to really hurt this team. Just somebody to draw coverage away from
Wow.
Zay Flowers. And because I don't think with his build and stuff, I don't think he can be a wide receiver one, even though he is going to be the number one guy in Baltimore. I just don't see him as a wide receiver one, and that's ultimately why I left him off. Could be a
I
hot
never
take.
thought
People
I'd
might, get after me, but it's just what I believe.
I never thought I'd hear the day that you're saying that a team's going to get hurt because of Odell Beckham's no longer on the team.
Yeah, I mean his stats weren't that great, but like he's just a big body guy on the outside that people have to think about, and you got to respect it. And without him there, like, I mean, I don't think Rashad Bateman's scaring anybody, or the Nelson Aguilars of the world.
No. All right, Joe, what do you got in tier number 4? Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our channel by following us on Apple and Spotify under the Salary Cap Show, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Front Office Pros. If you want advice on your trades, head over to the Front Office Pros Twitter and fill out our Front Office Pros Dynasty Trade Inquiry Form, which gives us all the information we need to help advise you on what is the best move for your team.
All right, in tier 4 at number 20, I've got T. Higgins, 19, Nico Collins, 18, Jalen Waddle, 17, Michael Pittman Jr., and at 16, DJ Moore.
All right, at number 20, I've got Nico Collins, 19, Jackson Smith-Njigba, 18, Chris Olave, 17, Brandon Ayuk, 16, DK Metcalf, and 15, Drake London. I got to tell you, Joe, looking at these rankings here, I'm very curious who's going to be higher up there, because you've got Moore, you've got Pittman, you've got Waddle, you've got Higgins. These guys are higher up guys that you got here in this other tier. I will say this, and feel free to pick your poison, or we could talk about both. I don't have Michael Pittman or T. Higgins in my top 24.
Wow.
Now, that I think will come to a surprise for most. I think for me, we really saw Pittman take that next step with Gardner Minshew. I'm not so sure that Michael Pittman is going to continue to be this guy. I actually think Adonai Mitchell may step in and become that guy. So I'm going to reserve my judgment on that, and I'm going to hold off because I don't know. We don't really know what this offense is going to look like with Anthony Richardson. I know people aren't going to like that. People are not going to like that take. And I get it. And if I'm wrong, I'll take the L. But I don't know. To me, Richardson offense, although I think he'll be very successful, we really have no idea what it's going to look like. And I think you would agree with me that his success, Pittman's was last year, was due to the fact of his rapport with Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to say that just because Richardson only played 4 games. We really didn't see, that offense come together with him. But curious to see what his development is, after being able to sit and watch a year for Richardson. And, they went out and paid Michael Pittman to be their number one guy. And, we'll see if Richardson can feed him like Minshew was able to.
And then when it comes to T. Higgins, here's the thing. I don't know what's going to happen with this guy. I mean, this is a complete melodrama over in Cincinnati. I think he's done. I mean, I know you. I don't think you are.
Wait, you just said T. Higgins is done?
With the Bengals?
Oh, with the Bengals. Okay.
Now with his career, I think he's a great player. I just think we're looking at a nasty divorce right now between them, where they haven't separated yet. They haven't signed the papers. I think that if they want to try to keep Higgins there, I don't know. I mean, it seems even from reports I think I've heard from Adam Schefter saying, we don't know, this guy might be like, my leg's bothering me or whatever. There was that big dust up with him and Dan Orlovsky about talking about T. Higgins. I don't know, Joe. I think he's a great player. I just think he's stuck right now. He's got to get out of Cincinnati. Paul Brown, owner of the Bengals is not going to open up his pocketbook. He opened it up enough for guys like Joe Burrow and eventually Jamar Chase, who the Bengals are not accustomed to paying a ton of money. So I don't know. It's tough for me to rank T. Higgins right now because I feel like he's being held hostage.
He is. I think ultimately he'll come in and play on the franchise tag, and then after the season, it'll be where does he go? But yeah, it's drama right now. But you got to understand, people also have really nothing to report on right now. So I feel like a lot of it in the media can get overblown. And for the Bengals, like you mentioned, they paid Burrow. Now they got to pay Chase. Can't pay everybody. They just want T. Higgins to come play on the franchise tag. I think when push comes to shove, T. Higgins will, because if not, he's going to get, fined
You could do the
quite a bit of money
Le'Veon
for
Bell
not playing.
2.0.
What's that?
You could do Le'Veon Bell 2.0.
Right, and how'd that work out for Bell? I mean, his career was shot after. I think at push come to shove, Higgins comes and plays on the franchise tag.
He probably does, but I just don't think that he'll be the T. Higgins that we've known for these past 2 years.
I don't see why not. I mean, because at the end of the day, his franchise tag is going to be for 1 year. He's going to want to put on a show so that some other team will be confident in paying him.
And that's not what Adam Schefter was saying. You're taking the Dan Orlovsky point of view.
Yeah, like I said, man, like there's nothing for football. There's not much else to report on. If they want to create some drama that may or may not be there, so be it. But I'm not worried about that.
I think I'm gonna hold tight here to see what you've got in tier 3, because I'm very curious because you've got some heavy hitters here in tier 4. So I'm gonna hold on to see what you got for tier 3.
You really think I have that many heavy hitters, huh?
I don't think you had Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore. I don't think you had those type of guys here in tier 3 last time. I think they were higher for you.
Nah, I was low on DJ Moore. You were pretty forward. You were a lot higher. My rankings on that didn't really change too much. Waddle was probably the lowest drop, but those other guys are pretty similar from last video. But in tier 3, Steve.
Yeah, let's hear tier 3.
Tier 3. At 15, I've got Devonta Smith. 14, I've got Brandon Ayuk. 13, Odunze. 12, I've got Drake London. At 11, Chris Olave. And at 10, Malik Nabers.
All right, so at number 14, I've got Jalen Waddle. 13, Devonta Smith. 12, DJ Moore. 11, Malik Nabers. And 10, Odunze. All right, this is where it starts to get interesting. I'm getting to see where things are bubbling up to the surface here. Let's talk about Drake London first.
Yep.
I did not have Drake London in my top 24 last year. I got lambasted for it. I was concerned about the quarterback situation, what was going on there. Now Kirk Cousins is coming in. I think Drake London has a great opportunity to succeed and succeed very well in Atlanta. And that's why I felt he had a huge rise in my view, because to me, quarterback has a huge bearing on their success. So I think London is definitely a buy all around. I question how good he'll be. I do think that people are kind of allured by him so much so that they think he's going to be this next top 10 guy, or he's basically Garrett Wilson. I think people want him to be Garrett Wilson-esque, where he's this top guy. And maybe he'll get there. I'm not so sure that he'll pay you dividends, especially like in an auction draft. I think this guy's going to go nuts. People are going to spend a ton of money on this guy just based purely on potential, because we saw what Kirk Cousins has been able to do in supporting top receivers. He's going to have a good year. I just don't know if it's going to be exceptional.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I've got him at 12. I think he's going to have a good year. I'm excited to see what he'll be with Kirk Cousins. I mean, this guy was just part of it is he was hyped up so much coming out and as a rookie, and he was supposed to be that next big thing at the wide receiver position. But I just really feel like the quarterback situation has held him back in his career. I don't think it has a lot to do with his talent. Similar to Kyle Pitts, curious to see what he ends up doing this year with, finally with a guy like Kirk Cousins, who can just support multiple people in the passing game and support multiple receiving weapons. So I think, obviously that's what's got everyone excited. But I think Drake London is going to be in for a big year this year.
One other one that you and I are quite different on is Chris Olave. You have him.
Yeah, you've never been a Chris Olave guy.
No, I have him at 18. You have him at 11. Here's the thing. I mean, what have we seen from the guy? Him and Derek Carr have, maybe they were able to get on a better page, but they've not been on a good page. So are you hoping that Spencer Rattler becomes something that makes Olave into something? I just don't know what the future holds for this guy.
Yeah, I'm more so, regardless of the quarterback, I'm just trusting in the talent of Chris Olave. He's a very talented receiver. He's a good route runner. So I'm just trusting in more so that than, Derek Carr, who I believe is an average quarterback.
But what even is this surrounding cast? I mean, honestly, that's a whole different interesting conversation to be had. I think between the two of us, I think I put more credence towards having a strong supporting cast. If a player has a stronger supporting cast, I tend to think more favorably of the guy. I think from what maybe you prove me wrong here, but I think you don't care about that as much. I feel like if you think the player is an exceptional talent, it doesn't matter who's around them; they're going to be really good. I feel like I read into the supporting cast more.
So why do you have Zay Flowers so high then?
He's a little bit of an anomaly. He's a little bit of an anomaly for me, but I think that's
Yeah.
because. But I think that's just a style of offense, right? Because they're going to be running the ball, play action. He has great separation. He does have a guy like Mark Andrews in line, right? So with Olave, my view, it's like what do they have around Olave? I mean, Kamara's going to be gone. I mean, not gone. I mean, he's basically gone, right? Probably within the next year, probably maybe 2 tops, but I would think a year. And then who else do they have to deal with? I mean, they don't really have anybody to work with anymore.
Right. That's why they got to just force feed the ball to Chris Olave, because
I
what are
know.
they going to do? Throw the occasional shot to Rashid Shaheed? I mean, this guy his target numbers last year and everything, and he had, double-digit receptions in a lot of games. I just think his utilization, because to your point, there's not really anyone ever to really steal targets away from this guy. So him and Derek Carr are going to have to figure it out, because Olave's not going anywhere, and he's the clearing away number one option in that offense.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I struggle with it. I don't know. But you said I'm not an Olave guy.
No, I know you've never been an Olave guy. I've always had him higher than you. Wasn't surprised of where you had him. It's honestly what I expected.
Oh boy, here we go.
And I'm sure you weren't. I mean, I had Chris Olave right in this realm before when you did this. So,
well, we're both up at 10 here. So, heading over to tier 2. Who do you got there?
yeah, I saw it interesting that you have Odunze ahead of Nabers. That's pretty on par for what you've been saying.
We could talk about that. What you think? Do you think I'm wrong about that?
I don't think you're wrong. I just
Obviously,
I
you
think,
didn't have the gumption to do it. You've got Nabers at 10 and Odunze at 13.
yeah, for me it's just I just think
Exceptional talent.
right. I'm trusting in, once again, I'm trusting in the Neighbors' talent. He's got the bigger playability. He's in a worse offensive situation, but once again, like, who else are the Giants going to throw the ball to? And I get that it's Daniel Jones, or if, maybe he gets hurt, maybe it's Drew Lock. But at the end of the day, like, who are these guys going to have to throw to other than like Neighbors? And Dable's going to have to figure out creative ways to get this guy in the ball. And if he does, he's got, that breakaway ability as well. Where Odunze, I think he could have a down rookie year, but I think after this year, once if they don't bring back a guy like Keenan Allen, we could see him flourish better.
I mean, it's razor thin between the two of them.
Right. Yeah.
I'm with you. I think Nabers is a superior talent. You could make the argument, in my view, and I don't think it's that crazy, that I actually like Malik Nabers' skill set better than Marvin Harrison Jr.'s skill set. But the difficult part is when it comes to Nabers is he went to the worst landing spot of the 3, in my view. So obviously with Odunze, you won't get immediate success. But if you're a believer in Caleb, or if Caleb's even just mediocre good, him and Odunze get to work together the rest of the way. All training camps, rookie mini camps, they're working together side by side. Keenan Allen's going to be gone after next year. You've got DJ Moore. You and I both don't think that DJ Moore is a pure number 1 guy. So I think Odunze's in a great spot. What happens with Nabers? Is Dayball and Joe Shane, that regime, gone next year if the Giants can't do anything about it? Who's going to be their quarterback? There's a lot of question marks as far as what's going to happen with him. I think he could be really good, but I think there's been a lot of times in the NFL, and don't quote me on specific examples, which maybe is bad on my part. But if I really dug into it, I think this is true. I think there's been a lot of talented receivers that have fizzled out and phased out in the NFL because they went to just horrible landing spots. I think landing spots, there is some level of credibility there. Yes, talent will win out in the end of the day. But how effective Malik Nabers will be and how good he'll actually be, I think, and his offensive line's a sieve. I mean, whoever the quarterback is, who's going to give him the time to be able to give it to Malik Nabers?
Yeah, don't need time when you just quick screen it out to him.
I know that's all you're going to have to do. That's all you're going to be able to do in that Giants offense, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, or, 3-step drop, hit him on a quick slant and see if he can't take it to the house.
That's what they're going to, and maybe that's why they draft him, because that's exactly what they're going to need to do.
Yeah.
So heading over to tier 2, who do you got over there?
All right, in tier 2, at number 9, I've got Tyreek Hill. 8, I've got Puka Nacua. 7, Garrett Wilson. 6, A.J. Brown. 5, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Wow, laying it on thick tonight. Oh, wowzers. All right. I was not expecting that. Number 9, Tyreek Hill. 8, Marvin Harrison Jr. 7, A.J. Brown. 6, Puka Nacua. And 5, Garrett Wilson. All right, Joe. You've got some explaining to do. I did not realize how high you were on said Marvin Harrison Jr. Talk to me about this, because you have quite a gap between him and the other rookie receivers here. What's going on over there?
Yeah, I mean, there was also, he was taken number 4 overall in the first round. He's 21 years old. And
yeah, but Malik Nabers was drafted 5.
Well,
or no,
6.
6.
But
okay.
I mean, they were 2 picks apart in the actual NFL draft. But unlike Nabers, Marvin Harrison's going to a great spot with the Arizona Cardinals.
With the muscle hamster?
Huh?
With the muscle hamster?
Muscle hamster.
Yeah, don't you call Kyler Murray the muscle hamster, or was that Doug Martin back in the day?
That was Doug Martin. I haven't heard muscle hamster called for anybody.
Okay, I
recently.
guess that ages me when it comes to NFL. But
Yeah,
I thought you don't like Kyler.
You're right. I don't like Kyler. I'm not that I don't like him. I'm just not the biggest Kyler supporter or fan. But when it comes to targeting the number 1 guy, he does it a ton. You saw what he was doing when they had DeAndre Hopkins, peppered him with targets. And, Marvin Harrison, I think just his game and his route running, I think it's going to translate to the NFL. I think he's going to have a pretty easy transition over. And he's a big body guy. And, I think Kyler Murray's, he's going to get a lot of targets and make some big plays, because at the end of the day, out of, Trey McBride, but Michael Wilson's interesting player who they got last year at the wide receiver position. Outside of that, they did get Zay Jones, who could be an interesting option, as a wide receiver 3, but Marvin Harrison Jr. is by far their best weapon on offense.
I like Marvin Harrison Jr., don't get me wrong. I am a big fan of his. I just don't know if there's that big of a gap that you're making it out to be between Harrison and then the other guys. I've got a difference between 8, 10, and 11. Yours is 5, 10, and 13. It's a pretty big jump.
Yeah. Because I mean, for
you
fantasy,
think he's that much better.
I think he's that much better. Yeah, I really do. There's been some things like Marvin Harrison Jr. He's the son of Marvin Harrison. He's got the bloodlines, and he's already got the work ethic that it takes to be an NFL player. So I just don't see, him busting, being
Brendan
a
Rice in this top 24.
He's the son of Jerry Rice's son.
Jerry Rice was the greatest of all time.
I get that, but I mean, Brendan Rice, like he wasn't even he went a lot later in the NFL draft than I thought potentially he would.
Oh, absolutely, I agree.
I thought the fact that he's Jerry Rice's son, he might get taken earlier, but for whatever reason he just didn't. But look, Marvin Harrison Jr., everyone said this guy number one in college. So I think, like I said, I think his game translates over to the NFL quite nicely. And I think he's going to have a, early impact as a rookie.
I do think it's interesting that of this group here, you and I have the same players in this cluster. Did not expect that. I mean, it doesn't happen. That's very rare, I find, for us. We usually have at least odds and ends a little bit different. One guy we'll talk about is Garrett Wilson. He's had a huge jump for me. And I saw this on Twitter. This guy definitely caught my eye. He's the first player ever to amass over 300-plus targets in his first 2 seasons of his career. Who has he had at quarterback? He's had Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco and, whoever else has been in their quarterback. I can't even name all the quarterbacks that have been there. So what he's been able to do with so little is honestly remarkable. And he's honestly made me reconsider my whole practice, honestly, when it comes to evaluating receivers, because I didn't have like he was low, but I did knock him down a few pegs because I'm like, Zach Wilson is horrible. So obviously Garrett Wilson isn't going to be any good. I thought he was my guy for me last year with Aaron Rodgers coming in. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be healthy, and if that's the case, he's going to just take the league by storm this year. Garrett Wilson will. I think that the future, we don't know what's going to happen, but he's been able to make lemonade out of lemons here. So I think he's worthy, honestly. And that's why I feel more positive about him than a guy even like a Puka. Because the Puka has been very dependent on Stafford. We've only saw him that 1 year, but, who knows how much longer Stafford has. And after that happens, I guess you have confidence in McVay that he's going to involve Puka into the offense. But, I mean, you and I both agree. We have Garrett Wilson ahead of Puka.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as far as, Puka goes, Stafford leaves. I really think that McVay system, I think he'll find another quarterback that can do similar things to Stafford, and just it's mainly timing routes with Nacua, and he's such a great route runner. I don't think he'll be that affected. But yeah, I mean, for Garrett Wilson, the thing with, even though he's like produced and been heavily targeted with bad quarterbacks, like he had a pretty disappointing year last year. And I get, compared to what we were expecting him to take that next step forward with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. Finally having a quarterback just didn't happen for him. But I think, if Rodgers potentially one and done this year, even though he's going to get the looks and the targets, I think quarterback could be a little more concerning for Garrett Wilson.
Interesting. All right, Joe. So why don't we round it out here? Who do you got in tier number 1?
Yeah, so my tier 1 actually did not change at all from the last video. But at number 4, I've got Amon-Ra St.Brown. At 3, I've got CeeDee Lamb. 2, I've got Justin Jefferson. And at number 1, Ja'Marr Chase.
I did change since the last time we did this, and it is quite the shakeup. At 4, I've got Amon-Ra St.Brown. I decided to put him into the tier 1. Felt like he was worthy of that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Ja'Marr Chase, number 3. Justin Jefferson, number 2, and CeeDee Lamb, number 1.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So you're not concerned if this is Dak's last year in Dallas? Or you just think CeeDee's quarterback proof doesn't matter?
Well, I mean, let me play this carefully.
Oh.
Justin Jefferson has a possible quarterback concern. We'll see what happens there. Joe Burrow should be good, but at the same time, it's like how much you put into his whole wrist thing and that injury. And then on top of that, if you look at Ja'Marr Chase, this is a tough one because if you look at him, he's been good. But I think the best finish he's ever had, I think, is wide receiver 5. He's never even been like an alpha guy, like number 1 guy. Like it was like a CeeDee Lamb, I think, last year, if I'm not mistaken, had a monster year. Jefferson's had some monster years. Ja'Marr Chase has been solid, don't get me wrong. But he's never had a, like, I'm the guy type of year. Maybe that would happen when T. Higgins is no longer there and they pepper him with targets. But I don't know. I think in hindsight, I think as I look back, I think I gave too much credence to the idea. Well, Burrow and Chase are going to be together, so obviously they should be number one. And I'm starting to walk back on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that is fair. I think a lot of it has to do with just, I mean, Joe Burrow has really only been healthy for like one full season, in order to get him the ball and potentially be, allow Jamar Chase to be the potential number one receiver. But um, for the long term, I mean, if Burrow can stay healthy, I just think that duo and everything, uh, it is tough though, because I like, even though I have Jamar Chase number one, like, it's not by a lot compared to the likes of Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I could easily. I don't know if I'd go CeeDee Lamb one. I'd probably just put Jefferson number one potentially if I were to change things. Just because I think Jefferson. I just think he's the better receiver, honestly. And I think JJ McCarthy and him are just gonna be just fine.
We look at Chase. I wanted to look into this just to be sure. His rookie year, Chase ended up at 5. In the season following that, he was 12. The season following that, he was 13. Lamb and Jefferson have had way more productive seasons, and I almost thought about putting Amon-Ra ahead of Jamar Chase, to be honest with you. Chase is just this huge name, but the guy can't. Of the 4, he's the one who's got the biggest injury concerns. And I don't think it's even a question. Guy's been nicked up, from time to time, throughout.
That's also been holding him back for sure.
So, I mean, to me, it's like, can this guy continue to be? And you always say it, Joe. What's the best ability? Availability. And the reality is can he be available on the field? I'm not so sure. Could his quarterback be available? Depending on how much you think that injury, or the new offensive coordinator now coming in because Callahan is no longer there. There's a lot of question marks in Cincinnati this year that have me concerned. So that's why I bumped Chase down. With Amon-Ra St.Brown, I feel like he was deserving to be in this top 4. And honestly, what really tilted the scales for me was they didn't really address the position at all. It's really him and Jameson Williams. And he's the one who really makes that offense hum. With maybe, I guess you have Gibbs and you have Laporta. But I think he is just the glue guy for that offense.
For sure, yeah.
He gets the extension. Goff gets the extension. There's a lot of familiarity there. These guys know how to play with each other. There's a rapport there. For the same reasons why I like Chase and Burrow, and maybe they're more flashy because they're bigger names, Goff and Amon-Ra St.Brown have proved it. I feel like he's deserving, and he's young. So if you look at it from a dynasty standpoint, he's deserving to be in this top tier, in my opinion.
I'm glad you finally saw the light, Steve, because I believe you gave me some flack for having him on St.Brown in tier 1 the last video. So,
well, the security honestly made a lot. Before that, we didn't know what was going to happen with Amon-Ra. We didn't know what was going to happen with Goff. Even though I'm not the hugest fan of Goff, you can't deny how much he looks his way. So, regardless of who it is, to me, if he's going to get peppered with targets, then he's deserving to be in this group.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, kudos to you for finally seeing the light, Steve, getting the confidence and throwing him in here, because he absolutely deserves to be in the top tier.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. As far as Jefferson goes, let's talk about him. I know you're excited about him with McCarthy. I'm not so convinced that McCarthy's going to start out of the gate. And I actually am leaning that
Have you seen the latest things out of camp?
Wait, you of anybody is going to talk about training camp buzz in the month of May? Give me a break.
Hey, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. When it supports your angle, then you'll bring it up. Give me a break. Here's the thing.
Just like stats, reports can be manipulated just to support a certain viewpoint.
Oh, yeah. Look, I lean toward Jefferson possibly not being with the Vikings very, very soon. I think that there's a possibility they can't come to an agreement because this guy's going to want the absolute bag. What he's looking to get paid, we will not have seen the likes of the contract that he'll receive as a receiver. Now, because they've got McCarthy under a rookie deal, they believe in his talents, they could afford to pay Jefferson a ton of money.
I was going to say, who else are they paying the big bucks then? I mean, I know they paid the edge rushers on the opposite side of the ball, but I mean,
but I mean, it's not always. They have to look at their, every team has their own philosophy. From a cap standpoint, they have to decide how much cap dollars, how much percentage of the cap do they want to allocate, to their receiver position or their safety position or their linebacker position or, so on and so forth. So I think he could be on the move. I just, there's no denying his talent. I mean, he's been unbelievable. He's usually the instant one. He's started having some injury issues this past season. I don't know. I have him too. I just ultimately had Lamb 1 because I think I think this whole Dak thing is going to blow over. I think, what's Jerry going to do? They're going to go to Trey Lance. I think you see the same reason why you have Amon-Ra and Jared Goff. I think you have the same thing with Dak and Ceedee, and I think it's even stronger. So to me, that's why I ended up putting Ceedee Lamb number 1.
Yeah, I think just the difference is the culture and everything that Detroit has. They, like Dan Campbell and like Goff is Dan Campbell's guy, and they want to keep everything the same and stabilize that culture, that new culture that the Lions are setting. Or like the Cowboys are all over the place, and the pressure's on Jerry to win playoff games and win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Jerry's in trouble.
Right. So if Dak and Ceedee can't get it done, like I think it's very possible they just say see you later to Dak because all he's been able to do is win them regular season games, can't win the postseason, and I think they'll figure something else out at quarterback. I mean, not sure what the free agent quarterback landscape will be, or if they, depending on who comes out, do they address it in the draft? But I mean, I can't imagine they're gonna after this year turn to Trey Lance. I think that'd be crazy.
I mean, look at Lamb though. He finished 1 last year, 6 the year prior, 16 in the year prior to his rookie year. He was 22. I mean, based on that, I would say that. I mean, Lamb has been more productive than Chase of recent. If you want to look at recency bias, wouldn't you say that wouldn't that be the case?
Well, because he had a great year last year.
Jefferson's in a league of his own. 5-4-1 and 29. He's in a league of his own. The question mark is just who's going to be the quarterback. But Jefferson's been in a league of his own, and what's going to happen with Jefferson? That's a big question.
Right. Yeah.
So that does it for our Dynasty wide receiver rankings with tiers, including rookies. If you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and check our previous videos. We did running backs already and quarterbacks. And before you know it, we're going to be talking about tight ends next week, as well as we're going to transition over to IDP. We're going to talk about each position group. We're talking edge rushers, interior defensive linemen, linebackers, corners, safeties. You're not going to want to miss that. Maybe kicker. No, not kicker. Just kidding about that.
How about punters?
Yeah, punters too. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.